Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, The Terran Battle Plan, written by the guy. The Terrans were never meant to stand a chance against the Zaxxor. How could a lowly system with only 3 heavily populated planets survive against a race that held hundreds of worlds? Well, the Terrans figured out how to. It all started 15 standard galactic solar rotations ago, when the Zaxxor were struggling with water scarcity. And there is only so much water that an empire can buy before coffers start to dry. So, the Zaxxor went looking for water and found Sol, with its 3 planets with more than 60% of their surface covered in oceans. Unfortunately, there were intelligent life forms on the planets. The Zaxxor were in trouble, as you cannot take a world with intellectual life. So they forged document claims that the life forms were in the early Stone Age. First, they feigned peace to try and lower the Terrans into a false sense of security, so that a surprise attack will be more straightforward. Then, when it came time to attack, they struck fast with ground vehicles to not disturb the atmosphere too much and make the water undrinkable. This tactic soon resulted in most of the forces getting bogged down by a massed line of fortifications the Terrans called trenches. What surprised the Zaxxor more was that they could not get past these trenches no matter how much they bombed them from space. All the while they killed in the thousands every day due to artillery, projectile weapons, and native bacteria. So they dug in themselves to not lose too many soldiers. Unfortunately for the Zaxxor, this is precisely what the Terrans wanted, as any Zaxxor that would wander into the land between the trenches would be dead within a second. So, the Zaxxor sent an entire army into the Terran front line. None survived, as the Terrans laid their weapons of war onto the military so that even they were stopped within seconds, still unable to reach Terran trenches. After building the trenches, thousands of Zaxxor would die on a good day due to suicidal charges that would never succeed. These numbers were only for Terra, as throughout the entire system the Zaxxor was suffering immense losses. Of course, the front lines were not the only ones suffering mounting dead, but that land that the Zaxxor already held also saw similar amounts of violence, as the battleground was being fought by Terran civilians picking up Terran weapons for themselves to use in warfare. They seemed to have named after one of their genetic cousins, with the generals growing ever more impatient with the war effort. Sent to Terra became a code word for death sentence in the Zaxxor military. This war had been going on for 15 standard galactic solar rotations under the Galactic Union's noses, until now. The Zaxxor government completely collapsed due to the number of people that had died in the war and the famine that had only been getting worse since the war started. The Zaxxor sued for peace, and the Terrans learned that there was a galactic union that could have ended the war, so they were less than pleased. The peace talks were held in a battle-scarred city of New York, partly because that was where the Terran government used to be before the Zaxxor invasion, and partly because it would show the Union what the Zaxxor did to the planet. The first thing the Union wanted to know was the number of dead. The humans answered with the number 134 million, while the Zaxxor representative bowed his head and said 389,248,846 dead. The Union was shocked that the second deadliest conflict in galactic history had happened without even knowing. Next, the Zaxxor representative asked how the Terrans held back their entire military. The humans answered, "When you came with diplomats, we gave you very concise information. We did not want you to know that we have been at war with ourselves for more than 10,000 years, as we thought that it would scare you away. When you announced your war, we moved in to inflict enough damage that you would have to pull out of the war. So, we practiced the lessons that we had taught ourselves in the past onto you. It worked surprisingly well, as you fell into every trap that would bog you down for years. So here you are now, a collapsed empire taken down by a lowly system. Also, it's spelled gorilla, and no, it's not named after the animal." End of story. Story number 2. Nobody Expects Them, written by Brew Foka. It all started as rumors of a great danger lurking in the fringes of the galaxy, converting or enslaving any race caught in their path. We detected a warning as soon as we discovered tachyon communication. The warnings were clear. Don't use jump technology, or they will find you. Centuries passed until it became legend. Stories to scare the children to do your bidding. Even if it was true the galaxy is too big and there are so many worlds out there that they will never find us. We believed that one race didn't want competition and started to spread this information. This only confirmed to us that jump technology was possible. We expanded our borders, we waged and won many wars, until that day. The fleet of ships like we never had seen before jumped in force on our homeworld with only one demand: convert or die! Our mighty fleet, winners of so many wars, were no match against the kinetic weaponry. Who would have thought that huge balls of metal could be so destructive in an age of laser beams, nuclear weapons, and plasma cannons? But what can you do when a huge metal ball comes in your direction close to the speed of light? Their ships launched a barrage of these. Our shields depleted fast against this, and our ships' armors were pierced easily. We surrendered a little after they sent their warriors. They are not only fierce, but brought with them a host of diseases that killed many. Because of our defiance, we were enslaved for no less than 2 generations. We had to convert to their religion. This is a warning to not use jump technology. They will find you, because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. End of story. Story number 3. Just Keep Running. Written by Bulgane Rockfern. Run! That was all he could allow himself to focus on. Got to keep running. Just a few minutes into the chase, and his legs were already burning away beneath him. His heart frantically pounding like a drum in his chest, his paws, his ears. His entire body was screaming bloody betrayal. But he had to push on, had to keep going. Come on, faster! You can do this! Your ancestors would weep if they saw you like this! You lazy sack of crap! He chanced a glance over his shoulder. Even with the lead she had given him, his tormentor was almost on his heels now. Briefly, his eyes met hers, filled with an unbridled joy. Even through the exertion, she was grinning, laughing even. Don't look back. Focus on yourself. Breathe in. Breathe out. In. Out. He was coming up to a bend in the path now. He was on the home terrain now. This was where he had the advantage. He hung low on the inside corner of the first bend, just barely dodging underneath a protruding branch. Memories from his youth were flooding back now, telling him which corners he could cut short and which to take wide. After so many years, the path he'd so often ran as a youngster hadn't changed a bit. A long left here, carefully turning right through almost dried-out stream. He'd long ago lost count of how many times he'd slipped on one of these rocks, and then a sharp left out of the bed and accelerated away. You're doing it! Holy crap! I'm actually doing it! A short whoop came from behind. The creature didn't know this place, wouldn't have known just how slippery those rocks would be. Oh, what he wouldn't have given to see it come crashing down, perilously balanced as it was on her 2 legs. He couldn't afford to stick around to see the aftermath, though. Have to keep pushing. Maybe, just maybe, he could actually make it out of this. He wasn't far from home, he knew. Just one more turn, and then that final, ungodly long stretch straight to the front door. If he could just reach it, he would be safe. Gods, he could smell it. So close was he. And then another scent penetrated his nostrils. An impossible scent, getting stronger with every step. The stench of sweat and adrenaline was catching up to him, the human producing it close behind. He glanced one more look behind him and nearly stumbled. It was right there, mere meters behind him. He tried to egg on his legs one more time, tried to demand them to carry him to safety. But he'd pushed too hard, tried to go too fast. A cramp shot up through his entire left hind leg, and he instantly knew that that was it. He'd had a good run, literally. But it was game over now. He turned and faced the human with what dignity he still had. The human slowed down to a walk as she approached him. hand outstretched towards his heart. "Tag, you're it." End of story. I would quickly like to thank the Tier 5 members, Marky, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Arnholtz, Oakfield, Lord Azrakul, and it's difficult to pronounce. Thank you very much.